When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. This is Mark Ledlow, the host of the Fearless Mindset Podcast. It's been a minute since I've seen you guys, because you guys are getting my weekly drops by my team, like a little stream of river coming out of the mountainside. So hope you guys are enjoying it at least. But today we're going to change it up a little bit. I had me and a longtime friend decide to make it happen. We were discussing about having her on the podcast like last year, and she's very busy, in-demand lady in the industry, up and coming all-star. Mary Campbell joins us from the East Coast, and she's been working her tail end off, being an attorney and everything else she does in her life and her world. Welcome finally to the show, and thanks for spending your time with us and sharing your journey in this crazy industry. How you doing, Mary?
Thrilled to be here. I know it's been a work in progress for at least a year that we've been trying to get this scheduled. So delighted to be here that we finally made it happen.
Yeah, it's due. And then we got to celebrate your big event that you did in the Lead Her conference you did in Detroit, Michigan. You're leading a panel over there. And what is the pulse and the temperature going on with what they're doing with As Is? And can you tell the audience, what are you seeing and hearing from that event that you just did? What's the excitement about?
Yeah, so it's actually a really cool event. It's the third year that we've had it. It's a collaboration between SIA and ASIS, Security Lead Her. It's just a phenomenal event. It's grown every successive year. It sells out every year. And it's a phenomenal opportunity for women to come together within the industry and really dive into sort of that professional building. So not solely industry specific, not solely professional development. There's a lot of crossover. But it was really meaningful, especially this year, because a lot of the DE&I and women focused areas of industries at large, particularly security, have taken a big hit this year with a lot of the support and, not only money, there's been, pretty much, I would say almost like half my network has been impacted in some capacity, either directly with job shuffling or indirectly through different restructuring. So to be able to come together and really share that support amongst one another was important. You wouldn't know that all of these things are happening in the background by the mood and the temperature and the energy in the room, which was really cool. It sort of was an opportunity to suspend all the chaos that's been going on and really celebrate all the accomplishments of these amazing professionals that are just doing incredible, astounding things.
Yeah, like you said, it's been kind of crazy. I know a team can't disclose who it is because they're a client. They just disbanded their entire EP program and they just let go of their chief security officer. I'm like,
which is mind blowing in this.
And they just acquired by another $1 billion company. So they have not like they don't have money, they just didn't want to spend it on that program. And they're a huge profile figure. And I don't know if the CFO got bad advice from the legal counsel. Maybe, I don't know, risk mitigation, bad advice.
Don't blame the lawyers.
Don't blame the lawyer because Mary happens to be a lawyer. But
you're right. It seems like every time we take a step forward with concepts like ESRM and you start really gaining traction and sort of breaking through that mindset of security isn't a single line item on your budget of cameras and access control. It's really a holistic approach to your company. It's like, you take one step forward and then ultimately it's two steps backwards with things like that. And you get a whole department that gets the axe or a restructure that doesn't include anything for security in any capacity. It just, seems very counterintuitive.
It just seems to me that a lot of executives just still to this day don't value, or they're always reacting to an issue or an incident, always in that response mode. The beer kicks in. But if they're preventative and had a program, you would see that would increase the valuation of that company and the branding. But
Yeah, I mean, and I find it's sort of like a lot of different things that you sort of, it's like learning. It's like education. Everybody learns in a different way. Some people are numbers people, some people are visual learners, some people, are audio learners. And I think once it's like that with a company. And I think once you can sort of decode how the executives at that company learn, so to speak,
Mhm.
what speaks to their decision making process, that's how you can get in. Is it numbers? Great. Create your case through the financial decision making on how much a holistic security program can save you on your line item, your asset protection, your holistic decisions. Is it visual? You can draw them a picture. Is it supply chain? Is it operational? Is it HR training? Whatever that case
Mhm.
may be, whatever that learning style is, so to speak, maybe that's your avenue in, and sort of approach it in a different way.
Right. Okay. What was the biggest takeaway from the conference that kind of hit you? Like, the industry is kind of falling apart. Where we find our way, people losing positions, positions being cut. How do we? What would you say you took away from that?
So, I mean, that's a great question. And I think for me, what resounded the most and what keeps bouncing around in my head,
Mm.
living completely rent free at all moments, was actually a comment by, or one of the messages by the closing keynote speaker, Shayla Atkins. And her comment was, and I
Mhm.
made a couple notes in advance. It's, why am I trying to fit into a mold that
Mm.
was not designed with me in mind?
Wow.
So it resonates, on the surface level to a lot of the women that were in the audience. But I think it can easily be translated to the security industry at large,
Mm.
because we're experiencing such a dramatic shift. We went from analog to digital. Now it's cyber. We've got AI. We've got, EP, digital twins, and we've got your protection of assets. Your definition of asset has materially changed. So, not only is it women trying to fit in a mold that wasn't designed with them in mind, it's the industry itself was designed during a time that did not anticipate the challenges and the tools we have today.
Mm.
So, I think it's really important to not constantly be banging our head against the wall and going, I'm struggling, but there's a good chance what you're struggling with wasn't designed for the challenge you're facing. How do we
Mm.
change the rules of the game? How do we better adapt to fit the response that we need out of the problem?
What's the response to that? What do you think? Yeah, you said educating, spending time learning those core principles, or what's your suggestions to those trying to figure that out, especially the younger generation coming up like yourself? Like,
Yeah, I
this
mean,
AI
that's the
thing is
$1 million
crazy.
question,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Is women, you know, taking that message, on the more surface level, and not that this isn't a deep, resounding concern or
Hmm.
issue, but sort of the surface level as it was presented. I think that's working within an organization and trying to, not only help those around you and reaching a hand to those behind you, but trying to translate the message to all the allies out there, to all the people in the organization of, how do we support women? How do we support DEI initiatives? And so actually, I had a session at GSX last year,
Hmm.
and we tried to make it as engaging as possible, but it was very dry and number and data heavy.
Mm.
Taking the approach of, this isn't just um, an aspirational, you should hire women and you should have DEI robust programs, but here's the data that backs it up. Here's how much more profitable a company is if they implement these programs. Here's
Mm.
how much they beat their competition, how much they save on employee turnover, on employee satisfaction, and really going through in a data-driven way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, going back to, what's your learning style? For those that are saying, don't shove these aspirational programs of women in security and DE&I initiatives down my throat. I'm tired of hearing about it, but here's the data behind why you should do it. It kind of approaches it in a different way. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some of that needs to be done as well. It's often a lot easier said than done, unfortunately. And I think, translating that to the industry at large, it's, if you aren't getting the response you need or the help you need with the problem because it wasn't designed with you or your problem or your infrastructure in mind, talk to those around you, find support, open the conversation. It seems like more often than not, the second I've got a problem and I pick up the phone or I'm talking to somebody and sharing that, I get oh my gosh, me too. I'm glad I'm not alone. So I think just having the conversation with other security professionals, helps build that resilience and that support, to change the game.
Well, here's the $1 million question that probably people are afraid to ask. But being that I'm an independent, thanks for the mug, by the way. Well, shout out.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, we gave those out in Orlando. And
I always say you have the best swag.
We got to work on that. We got to keep that elevation, the standard of swag up.
Hey,
I have to tell my team, got to work on, double down on that.
You really set a high bar.
That was great. Plus those big grocery bags that are now on campfire.
Oh, I use that all the time.
Oh my, that's hilarious. Good job by Melody K for doing all that. I had no idea what to do. But here, the $1 million question: is it still tough to break that class with women in security, with the old guard being the old guard in security?
It's getting better.
Okay.
It's getting a lot better. I think, there's the conversation is so much more prevalent, and there's such a turnover, I think, and growth within the industry. Yeah, it's not where we should be. Mm-hmm. It's not where we need to be, but it's a lot better than it was. So the number of conversations I've had when I first entered the industry where I was dismissed or, oh, you little blonde thing, how about we talk about setting up dinner plans as a date, and I'm professionally dismissed, versus now, is completely different. That those conversations don't happen the same way, where that was the standard when I entered the industry. There's sort of an acceptance that that's really inappropriate. Mm-hmm. Sure. So, I'm grateful. Like things like that have changed. Now it's not perfect, but the conversation has significantly changed.
When did you start seeing the change and adjustments of the attitudes towards you and other women in the industry? Has that been a 5-year process, 10-year process, or how would you explain that? It's
evolved. I would say there was a big leap forward, I think, as we sort of all emerged out of COVID. Mm-hmm. I think it sort of gave us all an opportunity to kind of be at home and pause and rethink and re-strategize. And there were a lot of restructuring efforts within organizations in the industry. The voices that resounded the most became a lot more women, a lot more young professionals, that I think it just naturally evolved. And as we emerged out of COVID, I think those that were resounding more shifted. And there was recognition of that.
And I think shout out to the kindness games, Tim Wenzel and Lee Octon. Yeah, they pushed pretty hard, and they got a lot of resistance. I heard from different organizations. Well, I'm not going to mention the organizations, but they got a lot of pushbacks, but it seems like they finally got accepted.
Yeah, you're right. And it's, I think every time you go in and change the status quo or those expectations, I think there's resistance. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think something like being nice to other people and showing kindness would experience such a pushback, but it did.
Wow.
And huge kudos to Tim and Lee for leading that charge. And I think that's a prime example, and Tim can speak ad nauseum about it, of being able to, again, find those learning styles of these
Mm-hmm.
organizations. And it's not, sitting around a drum circle saying kumbaya and we all love each other and, you feel the love tonight. But it's, here's the data behind why being nice to other people and showing support and, building those mentor-mentee relationships and bringing positivity to the workforce, recognizing contributions of others
Mm-hmm.
and passing it forward. Here's how it significantly and materially improves your organization and your relationship with other people. And I think they were able to not only build the movement in a positive
Mm-hmm.
way, but also to demonstrate the value of that movement that's still resounding with organizations today and only continuing to grow.
Yeah, it seems like it's expanded and grown, and
Yeah.
I mean they're getting on stages now, and
Yeah. It's
they're making
remarkable.
big moves, and it's like, and it took COVID to bring them together, a, a
Yeah.
global pandemic, a global crisis, and they talk to each other and they go, "Hey, I think everybody's dealing with things," and oh yeah, everybody's dealing with stuff, and then
Yeah.
they started the podcast thing, and then that's how I met Mary is through the club I'm in. That we're in a private chat group. He had to do 30
Yep.
shout outs in a month or whatever it was. I'm like, okay, that's not hard. And then next thing you know, you're invited to the alumni, and but it's a cool club, and actually I've gotten some business out of that club. That happened last 4 months. I'm like, oh, okay. So
And they're
it's
just great human beings across the board. I mean,
mhm,
I just superlative. I can't say enough good about those people. Um, and in fact, taking a slight detour, I had the privilege of meeting somebody new yesterday,
okay.
who we were on the same steering committee and probably had been on a number of calls together, but didn't realize we lived half a mile away from one another.
Wow.
Were able to meet up yesterday and realize that even though his business is going gangbusters,
Hmm.
he wasn't plugged into some of the same chat groups or some of the same networks.
Hmm.
Is somewhat new to ASIS and to some of these sub organizations, and to be able to plug him in, just filled me with so much joy. Not only to be able to share those connections, but to see the
Hmm.
responses that came back of people that had never met this person, that didn't have the benefit of the enjoyable evening I spent with him, but
Right.
you're just great human beings.
Hmm.
And immediately followed up and showed up with, hey, that's cool what you're doing. How can I help you? Sending you direct messages, and it's just, that's the foundation that Tim and Lee really established, and really brought out the best of people. I think they're all just wonderful human beings to begin with, but to really set that tone of
Hmm.
these groups and these relationships are built on kindness and respect and support,
Hmm.
is resounding and consistent. It's still there.
Right. What would be your advice? I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and they're trying to find value in the organization. Like there's several different organizations, security. You have different clubs that get together, and I know a lot of people tell me, "Well, what's the value really of going to as you're spending money?" And I truly see the value for myself, and that's where you really mend those relationships, you grow those relationships, and the trust is deepened by going to the conference. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not going to bother going. It's not worth my time." I'm like, but if you don't, the casualty of it's like then business suicide if you don't go because people, oh, are you out of business now? I didn't see you. So
Yeah.
what would you be your advice to the younger generation coming in going, well, what's the value going as is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think with a lot of things, your value is what you put into it,
Hmm.
you get out.
Good one.
And I've definitely realized that. So I'm a bit of the introvert extrovert. and I have a very, very, very strong introvert side. So, I don't naturally go and contribute and post online. I'm not overly active on social media. I'm not somebody that's going around knocking down doors. Hey, just checking in and, following up. I'm much more reserved and quiet and, introverted.
Mm,
So it's sometimes hard for me to come out of that shell
okay.
and stay out of the shell.
Uh,
That said, when I do, I see there's an exponential return on my investment. Being involved in communities and having those leadership positions, speaking, being part of chat groups, and contributing. That's what makes it. And looking back, as an example, I'd been in the industry for a couple years,
mhm.
but my first GSX, I walked around, sort of bounced around, did the trade show floor, and in a couple hours, I was ready to go home. I didn't know anybody. I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Hmm.
Didn't even know where to find information on where I should be going to meet other people. And I just sort of felt so isolated and alone and out of place.
Hmm.
And I look back at, last year, the year before, that having been a few years, having been involved, making those friendships, building those relationships, I can't walk 10 feet without seeing somebody, and somebody saying hi and where are you later, and I'm there, I'm up at 5 a.m. trying to get ready for the day, going to bed at 1 a.m. the next day, getting a nap
Wow.
in between, walking 40,000 feet a day, all over the place.
Hmm.
It's the shortest marathon week ever, like you're flying through and it's overwhelming in the most positive way possible
Hmm.
because of that engagement that you build up. And you meet so many new people, even if it's,
Hmm.
for 30 seconds, I laugh. And like the prime example of that is somebody like Leo Dess,
Yeah.
right? I see him every year. I see him for like 30 seconds because he's in and out so quickly, but at least I get to see him face to face,
Yeah.
minimum once a year. It's things like that, that even if you're only there, for
Hmm.
5 minutes and
Right.
to, cheers or high five as you pass, it's at least keeping those relationships active and strong and wonderful.
Yeah. I was struggling there for a while. I came from the West Coast and I came from the EP world, as everybody knows, listening to this podcast. And I knew I'd have to make the transition over. And I'm like, well, I never hang out with these people. They never call me. So why would I want to go hang out with them? Maybe that's the introvert in me going, after
Yeah.
analyzing and go, what's the value? But I had a good talk with Chuck Andrews, good talk with Tim and Lee, of course. And I need to pull my head out of my uh, 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 and marine up, bootstrap, and go hustle. And,
Yeah.
Chuck really pushed me. Chuck Andrews really pushed me and said, people need to know you. And then, shout out to uh, Craig Redinger, who passed away, former president of GS3. He said, yeah, if people don't see you in the conferences, I don't think you exist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. And so I think we really we got comfortable staying on our shells if we're introverts. Why don't we just do it over Zoom? Easy. Stay home.
Right.
But the trust factor, like you said, is made in 30 seconds with Lee when you see him passing. Oh, you're there. You made the effort to show up. And I think nowadays, I think you have to show up and you have to keep earning that trust
You
daily.
do. And I look back at, is it, oh gosh, they were blending together 2 or 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And some of the best networking, the best relationships, the most business I did was after the fair shut down Wednesday.
Mm.
People were still in town, and it was like that relief everybody had of, okay, I don't have to
Mm.
be on anymore. It's over. The hard work is behind me. I don't have a session looming over my head where I'm
Mm.
presenting. It's done, and we can kick back and relax and be less formal and just have a really good time. And you could
Mm.
sort of see everybody relax and
Mm.
come together, and it was such an enjoyable evening, and networking and connecting, and another plug for Security Lead Her. I'm thinking back a couple years that well, I guess really last year, one of the takeaways was, don't be shy about selling yourself, about what you're good at, and having that confidence, but also don't be afraid to say what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I need 1, 2, 3. And so being able to have those conversations and say, hey, it's really great to meet you. I'm looking for more business. Hey, I had a conversation with somebody in the industry. We don't really work in the same circles, and we've built a friendship over years. We were sitting down talking, and what are we both looking for? And he was considering a transition into a different position, and what is he considering, and what am I looking for? And I went, I'm struggling with 1, 2, 3. Then he went, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Now I know how to help you. And it's sort of being able to be upfront with things like that is not detrimental in the way that we sort of self-consciously think about it. It's really just going out and going, here's what I want help with. And more often than not, it's, oh, I didn't know that. I've got somebody to introduce you to, or here's how I can help you. And so it snowballs, which is, it's cool. But like you said, you've got to show up.
Yeah, what I found too is I realized after doing that last event at the Orlando Hyatt, everybody wanted to chill out and just sit back and hang out, have a drink, have something to eat, and just visit. They didn't want to be sold, and they didn't want to be pitched again by some vendor down the aisleway. They just wanted to get to know you.
Yep.
And that's the beginning of building that trust. That's the beginning of building that business transaction that will happen 6 months, a year later. And I think everybody is so hyper mode to close that deal during conference. That's where they screw themselves in those exhibit halls, is trying to get you, close you right then and there. The corporation probably has quotas for everybody that's there. What did you do for me yesterday? Well, this is a corporation. I need to see deliverables. And I don't think the new up and coming generation, they do business differently.
Completely differently.
And I think that's where the old guard is struggling. They're getting pushed back by the young generation. No, we don't want to do business. We want to get to know you, hang out, see if we like you before you even talk business.
Right.
And
it's sort of, I find, as the true millennial, I'm sort of in the middle, right? I look at the old guard and it's, well, I'm doing business with so-and-so because I've worked with him for 20 years. We go golfing every year, and that's my guy. I'm not deviating for products or companies or deals or anything. Like, that's my guy. And that relationship was built over years and years and years. The flip side is building the relationship first and then the deal. And I feel like I'm often in the middle. And I find so often that there's people that I've known for years that I've built these wonderful friendships with. And only later does it come out what they do. I'm like, I didn't know you did that. That's cool. Cool. Now that I know that, I'll introduce you to somebody else, and you kind of close that gap. I think it's a little bit rare for me because I'm, a little outside as a lawyer and not, in the trenches of the industry, so to speak.
Right.
But it's a different way of approaching it. Like you said, you build a relationship first, and then you find the people that you really like and trust and want to do business with, and then you find a way that you can both be successful and make it work.
Yeah, that's what I found out. I think that last Orlando trip we did was an eye opener for me. Just seeing the response and seeing how everybody interacted. Like, oh, this is where it's at. This is where the glue happens, and the creation of the relationships and all that. And watch that happen before your eyes, and had a couple of interviews there. We had
Absolutely.
Renee was there doing a talk with Tim, and Tim jumped in there in his shorts and did us.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm enjoying watching your platform. And as the older you get in this industry, you become like the coach, mentor. It just how your trends, your journey in this industry, and then that's kind of what I'm becoming, more of a coach, mentor to the younger generation. And I see you come elevating in your platform and doing more stuff, and it's like, oh, what's Perry doing? Oh, what's she doing now? Oh, getting out of her comfort zone. So congrats on you. I know that's probably not easy for you to do.
Not always, no. But again, rewarding. You put yourself out there, you get what you put in. So, I've enjoyed my security journey.
You're killing it. You're killing it. Okay. And we're wrapping up the first 30 minutes of this segment, folks. And I just wanted to let you guys know, although you guys can find Mary on LinkedIn. And you don't have a business website, do you?
Gamble.legal.
Okay, easy enough. Gamble.legal, piece of cake.
Yeah.
And we're going to, on the next part of the episode, we're going to dig into her background as an attorney, how she got in the industry, and we're going to do a little dive onto that. And so thanks for tuning in, and see us on the next episode. We're going to do a deep dive on the background of Mary. So stay tuned for the next episode.